Great episode of Elden Ring today. We did so much. We got Radahn's armor. And at the beginning of this episode, I was thinking about how there really wasn't a lot of variety in the armor that we got. So this was pretty excellent. We had a shit ton of cool boss fights. The Mimic Tier made them, and that summon guy made that double gargoyle fight probably a million times easier. And actually, the gargoyle freakily jumping off backwards, which you can see on a clip that Horky recorded on our Twitch, that was awesome. Yeah, they made it possible. It was because once I wasn't able to do enough damage to that first gargoyle before his buddy comes in. And I think it's because I didn't have a good strike weapon upgraded. And that is one of the most annoying things about this game. And I say most annoying in that this game is, I'd say this is pretty close to a masterpiece. I don't know what you think, Horky, or anybody. But it's just such an achievement. I mean, people say, Dark Souls 2, even when it's not a good Dark Souls game, it's still a great game. And this is one that's like that, where super solid. I mean, it's pretty special. I haven't played as long as you guys, but I've definitely gotten my money's worth out of it, where I feel, hard to feel mad about any of the flaws, where it's like, okay, parts where maybe I don't want to play anymore, I want to walk away from. I feel like there hasn't been any areas where I've maybe given up on and haven't gone back to and done well. I do feel like it's definitely in an easier mode with the summons you bring in that they want you to bring in, and then the Mimic Tier, but I really don't mind that. I don't get the same, like, oh my god, we finally did it. So the highs are not as high, because you don't have that exhilaration of 25th time against the boss. You can't believe you're finally doing it. You see their health going lower. You're like, okay, don't get greedy, but, try to stay calm. And the explosion of elation isn't there. So the highs are not as high, but the lows are nowhere near as low. And there's kind of like, they bring up the average of enjoyment because you're constantly seeing something new. It's not as hard to get through areas. You don't get stuck like imagine if this was more of a linear map and those flying, say that Crucible Knight was always in the way, or like those flying bugs earlier. We just ran underneath the flying bugs and didn't deal with them. You could if you wanted to. The Crucible Knight I could deal with if I wanted to, but I kept dying, so I ended up just saying fuck it and ran past them. But there's one map in Demon Souls where you're like underground or on some things, and you're just stuck fighting people. So even if you were like trying to get to a boss, you might have to run through those fucking guys over and over and over again, and it just like beats on you. So this one is pretty great about keeping things really fresh, because you're able to kind of like skip past the stuff you don't like. You're always seeing something new, and it just keeps you like pretty stimulated. It's very weird to talk about a piece of art and how it's like just making your brain feel stimulated and good, as if you're like on some kind of a drug or something. But in terms of just a game and what a game is doing, that's what it does. Much easier to go somewhere else when you get stuck. Yeah, there's so many options, and you can warp everywhere fast, and you can use a horse. So if you want to get to something else, it's just so great. One really neat thing you haven't run into is that warp right near you. It's one of the two routes into the capital city. Yes. Right, okay. You don't want to go one way, you can go the other. Okay. It's, they've definitely just brought up the overall enjoyment of it, and I feel like I make so much progress with it. And I can live without that exhilaration, because I was, like I probably said on the previous Too Long Didn't Watch, I was hesitant about this game, like I am starting any From Software game, because as much as you're excited to see the world, you want to see the world and the atmosphere, you want to have that challenge, and you want to feel that satisfaction. But sometimes they're so brutal, like with Demon Souls, playing that on the PS5. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I don't want to. I would love to see the rest of the world, but I just don't have it in me to keep doing that same route over and over again. Fighting those fucking enemies in those wooden rooms, and them falling through the roof, and them just overwhelming you, and then you get impatient, you try to run past them, and then you're dealing with more of them. I still remember that big guy and that narrow area. And it's It's more memorable because you see it more often and it's a big challenge and your brain is like terrified of it. So some of the parts in this game are less memorable just because they are easier and it's easier to run past them. But I won't hold that against it, and I prefer it. I think I'd put this one up there with Sekiro in terms of how much fun I had playing it. Maybe Dark Souls 1 too, just because it was so iconic and it did so many new things and it had very memorable worlds. There are a lot of repeated boss enemies, so yeah, maybe I'll see that a little later on. Yeah, the bosses don't have, right, the Crucible Knights. They're not as big of a personality. You also don't get to know them as much because you don't fail against them so many times. So if you are going to make something so challenging that is going to cause a lot of repetition, you really have to put a lot of work in them to make them not be tedious but memorable. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I feel like there's probably some more stuff we can do here. There's that warp. I don't know if this area is over. Sometimes the areas end before I'm expecting them to. And they just kind of move you on to the next one. And you think, wow, you guys did so much work here. Like, I feel like I could go back on those routes and climb up maybe higher. We got this warp area here. There's choice to, what to do with her. That Roger guy finally died. We used his bell bearings. We gave that twin armor to the guy's depressed brother, which was my favorite armor, but it gave us a summon to help beat the next boss, which let us go back and actually ran into the wrong room and then realized, oh, you can sell all your stuff to this lady, and I got Ramadan's armor, Radon. We got Randy's quest we can continue with. There's so much to do. And if, so if you get tired of something, you can just flip around and mix it up. So I'm really, really enjoying it. It does make a big difference that I have your help and guidance, where maybe I'll be looking at a walkthrough or something, but it's a little quicker and you can see what I'm doing. And you also know how I want to play, so I think that makes a big difference. So I really appreciate that. So, yeah, I'll be playing more Elden Ring.